2019, Kiehl's pledged to reduce 50% of its single-use polythene usage in stores by 2025. So far, on a monthly basis, we inspired 38,000 shoppers to switch to reusable bags and around 108 shoppers to bring their own containers for shopping. We replaced 132,000 plastic straws with paper straws while continuing to look for a sustainable solution for juice cups. Our top crust bread bags were replaced with compostable bags, reducing over 20,000 single-use polythene bags a day. Our fish, meat, fruit and vegetable counters also switched to compostable bags. That's not all. We continued to build awareness among our staff on the importance of reducing polythene usage and walk the journey towards reducing our impact on the environment, because together we can.
මෙය ඔවුන්ගේ අනාගතයේ කොටසක් වන්නට ඉඩ නොදෙන්න. ඔබ මුහුදු වෙරළට යන සෑම අවස්ථාවකම වෙරළ පිරිසිදු කිරීමට පුංචි මිනිත්තුවක් වැය කරන්න. ප්ලාස්ටික් සයිකල් වෙතින් පණිවිඩයක්.
Did you ever wonder about the consequences of your consumption habits? The more you have, the happier you will be, is the message we are constantly told. However, our current unsustainable make, use, waste model is causing a severe impact on both people and the environment. The recent economic growth in Asia has lifted many countries out of poverty, but it has also created a large number of new consumers, with plastics having made their way to nearly every aspect of our lives. Global plastic use has increased 20 times as much in the past 50 years and is expected to double in the next 20 years. Worldwide, we are already producing about 300 million tons of plastic waste every year. Even if citizens in developed economies are using about 20 times more plastics per person than in Asian developing countries, in Asia, plastics have become a major concern, threatening the safety and quality of our health and food, negatively impacting our ecosystems and contributing to climate change. It is time to change. We should do our best to eliminate the use of plastics, especially single-use plastics. In a new circular economy, plastics waste can be used to produce new goods. In this way, we limit the quantity of plastics that is being generated. Governments should take strong action, promoting higher standards and innovative and available alternatives to plastics. Businesses must innovate and design plastics that can be safely reused, recycled, remanufactured, or composted. Consumers must circulate all the plastic items they use and keep them in the economy and out of the environment. The European Commission launched in 2018 its European Strategy for Plastics in a Circular Economy, a directive on single use of plastics in 2019, and its new Circular Economy Action Plan in 2020 as part of its commitments within the EU Green Deal. The EU is also supporting the participation of its partner countries around the world to the Global Agreement on Plastics. Waste and plastics are two building blocks to push forward the transition towards a green economy. Since 2007, the Switch Asia program has implemented several grant projects promoting responsible supply chains and business practices, contributing to waste management and plastics in South Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. The program is also providing policy support to Pakistan and Maldives on waste and plastics management, and to Lao PDR on minimizing, reducing, and preventing single-use plastics. These issues are universal, and they touch every person on the planet. Play your part. Rethink, reduce, reuse, recycle. Each one of us can make a difference. It is our common and shared responsibility.
The ocean. Our island is surrounded by it. We live in the midst of it. Mesmerizing, enthralling, pleasing. Our ocean is unique, a vibrant marine habitat. We have loyal whales who never leave our seas. Turtles who always return to our shorelines. Mangroves sequestering carbon. Dugongs gliding beneath the waves. Seagrass meadows pumping oxygen we breathe. Underwater reefs sheltering marine life. But they're struggling. Coral reefs bleached. Our seabeds scraped over by foreign fishing trawlers. We're depleting our marine life through overfishing. Plastic and chemical waste pollution gush into our oceans. Coastal sand is disappearing. Marine animals killed by dynamite. Turtles entangling in goose nets. Ships colliding with whales. Climate change. Global warming. Oil spills. Coastal construction. Ocean acidification. Ocean's life is draining. We need the ocean. Our survival depends on it. The sea around us is now a hotspot for geopolitics, trade, security, maritime ventures, and crime. Our impact on the ocean matters. Our ocean is our lungs, our hearts, our nerves. Without it, no one can survive. We can only thrive if our oceans survive. Let's strive to be the guardians of the ocean. Let us be the protectors, together, for our ocean.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Kasumi Ranasinghe. I'm a core team member of the team of the Pearl Protectors. I would like to welcome you all to the World Oceans Day Summit, where today's concluding session is on eco-entrepreneurship initiatives under the theme of ocean pollution and solution. World Oceans Day Summit is hosted by the Pearl Protectors in partnership with Marine Environment Protection Authority, Blue Resource Trust, and World Oceans Day Organization. World Oceans Day Summit intends to delve into all aspects of the ocean and around Sri Lanka while highlighting key challenges, opportunities, and inspiring Sri Lankans to love and care for our marine environment. You can learn more about the summit on pearlprotectors.org. The topic of the session is eco-entrepreneurship initiatives, which is a very important topic to discuss as we witnessed one of the worst marine disasters a few days ago. And it shows how the plastic pollution needs to be tackled imminently. As with such a crisis to tackle down pollution, it's important to give light to eco-entrepreneurs that apply and create businesses that solve environmental problems as well as operate sustainably. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce amazing guests we have got today to talk about the topic, introducing Mr. Chullaka Hapuarachchi, who is the founder of Eco-360 that provides a range of sustainable alternatives to plastic that are made from 100% renewable sources that are biodegradable and compostable. Hi, Mr. Chullaka. We also have.
Hi, Kasumi.
We also have Mr. Himesh Fernando, founder and CEO of Chakra Sutra, a company that provides circular solutions and initiated Trash to Cash, an innovative way to recycle plastic for the first time in Sri Lanka, offering incentives for recycling plastic bottles. Hi,
Kasumi. Hi,
Mr.
everyone.
Himesh. Hi. We also have Ms. Lonali Rodrigo, founder and designer behind House of Lonali. House of Lonali is one of the first upcycling fashion brands from Sri Lanka that design and craft beautiful and unique pieces from textile waste. Hi, Lonali.
Hi.
So before we start, I would like to request all our audience members to send us any questions you may have, and we will answer them at the end of the session. So simply add your questions to the comment section on either Facebook or YouTube. So to start off, I would like to ask this general question from everyone. What inspired you to start an eco enterprise? And I would like to begin with Mr. Chullaka Hapuarachchi.
It dates back about 4 years ago when we started this, but I think the roots probably would have been far before that, I would say, because I was fortunate enough to have an upbringing where I was very close to nature, constantly in the jungles, camping, was very much a part of jungle life, forests. We had our own forests that, so I think that's where it all built up inside us, I think, thankful to our family background. But then later on, when we grew up into the corporate world, and then also got more exposure into businesses, into where we worked. And in the meantime, my family had a conventional packaging manufacturing, which later on in my life, I realized that it's not very sustainable, and I was not being part of it because of that. And later down the line, when we were quite big, and when I started working for part of MAS at the time, realized there's a lot more that we can do, and then really understood the scale of disaster, where we are heading. And then I was fortunate to go into different forums where I learned so much about environment, climate change, which I think really triggered something inside me. It said, you need to do something about this. And then, so the challenge was taken, and then 5 years ago, actually started my own recycling plant as a pet project that spun out. And then while I'm on it, I realized for certain sectors, recycling only doesn't work. We need a much more advanced solution. So that's when I went and got involved with this, with that certain other technologies around the world. It was one whole year of almost searching for solutions, development, and then after that made a conscious call that can take the challenge on. And then we started by producing the first biocompost bags in Sri Lanka, aimed at reducing the polythene bag issue, which was at that point the biggest issue which we felt, single-use plastic bags. And came up with that solution. So the inspiration is, I guess, twofold. One is that close to nature, which we were blessed with, and then also the experience, I think, which gave us twofold with the corporate sector that we really connected two together, and that brought in about the final, the decision making and to go about everything.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. Next, I would like to ask Ms. Lonali Rodrigo what inspired.
I think what inspired or what opened my mind was, again, the apparel industry in Sri Lanka. Apparel industry is a part of our economy. It supports, contributes our GDP. It's a part of our export income and also the workforce. So it's a huge industry that Sri Lanka needs. But there's definitely a gap that I saw when I was studying fashion. That there was a lot of waste that's been actually incinerated or ending up in landfill. So this is where I thought, okay, as a designer, I always wanted to do something different. So that kind of gave me the challenge of, rather than just creating something beautiful, I kind of, more challenged me to create something more impactful also. And that is how it triggered me to, okay, here we have waste, which is really value. And as a designer, my duty is not to just create some fashion, but actually to create something that is impactful. I think what inspired me a lot was also, or part of my stories also, is the artisans in Sri Lanka. We have that skill of upcycling. And as a student, I think as a design student, I've been traveling around Sri Lanka, seeing all these people, and that is where it kind of clicked me, okay, here's the waste and here's the people to really create the stuff. So that's where I kind of, put together this solution, or kind of, triggered me to, okay, fine, this is what I want to do, and what I want to do as a designer, actually.
Wow, that's a really nice answer. And also, I can see how different aspects as well when it comes to tackling down the environment. It's not just one thing, which brings me to Himesh Fernando.
Cheers, Kasumi, for the question. So my entrepreneur life is not very old. I started this off just a year and a half ago. But actually, the seed for it comes from previously. I'm a scientist by profession before, and then I moved on to corporate world. Been doing a bit of innovation. So through my life in the corporates and companies, I figured out there's lots of stuff, lots of new ideas we want to execute. And I have to be very honest. My eco-entrepreneurship, I've ended up here. I didn't start with a big passion for nature. That wasn't who I was originally. But then wanting to do something new and wanted to do something on my own set me on a path that, okay, what do I do? Is it going to be just a traditional business? Is it going to be another startup? But then what always kind of kept kind of reminding me was, if you're doing something, you've got to be doing something impactful. That's something you can make a real change in Sri Lanka, is what's been ringing in my head. And then I put both these objectives together, wanting to do something on my own and wanting to do something impactful. And with my background of growing up in Mathura, Sri Lanka, and my very interested life, the beach life that I live very close to the beach, and a lot of my time I spend on the beach. Putting all that together, I came up with this thing that we need to do something towards the environment. Do an initiative, a startup that makes sense towards solving a business, an environmental issue, and that's why we put this together. And I've seen, all on my drives, I've seen lots of pollution and how the landscape has changed over the years. Not very long, and it's in the last 6-7 years, how the coastal stretch has changed so much. And we set a target. Let's address this problem. Plastics, it can be done. It's a behavioral change that is required. Other countries have done it, so why not we? And we try to come up with an innovative way to solve that issue. So that's pretty much my story in short.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's really amazing that there are 3 eco-entrepreneurs today that tackle down this pollution in very different and innovative ways. So I would like to further move on to asking, what exactly is unique about the enterprise, and what are the sustainability measures that you take within the enterprise? I think first off, I would like to ask Mr. Lonali Rodrigo.
So I think in our business, upcycling is embedded in the business itself, in the process. So what we basically do, we work with the apparel industry and get their waste and the offcuts, or different forms. It comes in, actually it can be offcuts to roll-ins or rejects, cut-offs. It can be different trims sometimes. So what we do is we get this and we upcycle it. So basically the main resources itself is sustainable. So it's embedded in the business model. And then in the process of upcycling, we also try to keep it zero waste. So minimize the waste that we create within our process. So if you say we make a garment, whatever the offcuts that we would use it for other accessories, we will not, roughly if we say we take 10 kilograms of waste, we would do, the waste that we would create is maybe less than even 200 grams. So there's a lot of gap that we take waste and we create less waste. So that's something that we started after getting into the business. Okay, we thought, why waste, right? We're already using waste, thinking it's value, so we're not going to waste anything either, because it's still value. Then obviously the carbon footprint, it's something that we recently started looking at, because it's a lot of bigger companies that look at their carbon footprint of their product or their company. For us, it's a very difficult, SMEs or micro-level enterprises, it's a very tough one. But in a small scale, if we can do something, we thought, okay, we are going to take this challenge as well. So we've implemented, whatever the machines we've taken, energy-saving machines. Wherever possible, we use the solar energy. But there is somewhat carbon that is emission in a business. So you can't say we are zero carbon emission, right? Because we are also a part of a third-party retail. We can't tell them to switch their lights off, right? Even though we do it within our premises, we can't tell exactly. We don't have that. So how do we do this? We're also looking at, okay, can we partner up with, making our process a bit more, can we make our carbon, offset our carbon, right? So we are even challenging ourselves to think into that detail. So that's something definitely we are looking at. And but I think the main is our model is such that we upcycle, and we are also designers. So how we use creativity for sustainability. So one such example that I can give is having the higher quality product. If you give a good quality product, that product lasts for a longer time. That itself is sustainable, because in the apparel sector, the main thing is about making cheaper fast fashion, right? So this is where it has actually ended up in the bad results and made the fashion industry the second largest polluter. So we try to give a quality of product that somebody can actually use it for more than 10-20 years if they want to, or they can share, swap, or resell. So we wouldn't compromise on the quality. At the same time, we look at the trend, which is also help a garment to be long lasting. Because sometimes even the quality is there, if the trend shift, people want to, either they will keep it in the cupboard, not wear. But we would try to actually give a design. For example, a reversible garment will have 2 different looks or 2 different colors. So we try to design something that is sustainable and that makes an impact in the consumption usage. So those are few things that we've done and we are doing, and we look forward to do as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for that. And how about you, Mr. Himesh Fernando?
Yeah, so before getting into the measures, maybe I need to quickly kind of introduce what we really do, because I'm not sure if the audience has a background to, or privy to what the startup Chakra Sutra is about and Trash to Cash. So in a nutshell, it's really a behavioral change we are trying to drive in Sri Lanka. It's been done in other parts of the world, but how we are doing it is very unique in Sri Lanka. Not the front end of the machine and what we do, but the business model of how we're trying to achieve it. So essentially, we want people in their homes, families, kids, husbands, wives, collect your plastic at home in a different bag. It can be any plastic bottle, from drinking water to fizzy drinks to milk, shampoo, conditioner, cooking sauces, you name it, any bottle, right? But there are mainly 2 types of bottles. Either it's a PET bottle or it's HDP, type 1 or type 2. So you collect all your bottles. We want you to change your shopping habits from shopping to recycle and shopping. So this transition has happened in other countries. People actually, when they go shopping, they take all their recyclables with them, they put it into their separate bins, and then they go into the shop and do their supermarket stuff and come back. And it's a very routine thing. But in Sri Lanka, this practice hasn't developed yet. So what we're trying to do is drive this with an incentive. So we have like a vending machine type of thing outside Keel's Union Place currently. It's a pilot that we just completed. So people will punch in their mobile number, put all these bottles into the machine, and they get a credit of 2 rupees for every bottle they put in. Credit means credit will show on the screen, and when you finish your session, it will send you a SMS saying you put 20 bottles, you have 40 rupees. And we've seamlessly integrated it with the Keel's IT backend system. So you do your Keel's shopping currently again at Union Place. And then at the checkout, just like you redeem your loyalty points, you would say my Trash to Cash number, and it will come out from your total bill. So whatever you shop doesn't matter. It will come out of your bill, and it will show us Trash to Cash discount. And what do we do with the bottles? All the bottles we collect, we partnered up with Eco-entrepreneurship who work with us in converting them into the polyester yarn, and thereby the fabric and the garment, polyester garment. Of course, there's another side to it about microplastics and what polyester garments do to the environment, but let's not go there right now. But essentially, that's what we do. The measures are pretty straightforward for us. I mean, at a high level, a company would follow what you call a balanced scorecard. You have financials, objectives, and measures. You have processes, you have people, and then you got environmental. But focus of this seminar, sustainability measures are very simple. It's about how much the recycling rate in Sri Lanka for plastics in general is about between 8 to 10%. Right? Recycling rates for plastic bottles in Sri Lanka is about 15%. So our goal is to actually drive this up to 40-45% in 3 years. Right? This initiative alone, if it works, right, that's a big gift because we want it to work. We should be able to do this. So that's about recycling rates. The other one is about the number of bottles we collect, simply. So if we have X number of bottles we collect for a day, we want to drive it to 5x by 2-3 years. So it's a very sustainability driven KPIs we have. But apart from that, because we have other things that need to complement our business model, we need to have so many users on our platform, then so many redemption method corporates joining us to contribute to our business model. So all that comes into play, but sustainability wise, it's about recycling rates and how many bottles and how many users we get on our machines.
Okay, that's great. I think, and I hope that the dispensaries, like the machines, do get more and more like increased, so it's available in all the areas within the country.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're expanding Greater Colombo right now.
Okay, that's great. And how about you? I know that Eco360 has been there for a while now, but then again, people still do question, what is it? Like, what are they made from? The biodegradable bags that you provide, they still question whether there is plastic in it. And I think this is a good opportunity for you to clarify. Mr.
Yeah, I think
that's
a great place to start. That one thing we can clearly say is it's zero plastic or polythene in any of those bags. I think that's what we ensure. But I think we go beyond that. We ensure a sustainable supply chain, which is tough at first. Where we get from, to get to certified products, access to sustainable raw materials which come out of sustainable sources, because mainly if you take our products, the biocompost bag is basically made out of cornstarch waste that carries about 40% of that is cornstarch waste, and then the rest is polylactic acid, which is again a natural based source that we take it from. So in that, we were very mindful that where does this raw material come from? Does it come from just harnessing what's available for food sources, or does it come from a more sustainable source where it's a waste out of an industry, where we can tap into that and take that, and so that it makes more sense. Because one thing we didn't want to do is, okay, we might move into an industry because the end purpose is sustainable, but whereas the start of it, if you need to access food sources or things like that, then again it becomes not sustainable. So I think getting together our supply chain, thinking through that and aligning the supply chains was one of the first things that we did before bringing about the bag itself. And the other thing is, I mean, to your question, yes, we can assure it's 100% zero plastic, and we use certified raw materials. And it's not only just biodegradable, it's compostable, and it's also home compostable. I think I can just share this with you at this moment because there's a bit of a confusion in the world when you say compostable also and biodegradable.
Yeah.
So biodegradable, there are different types. You can add small aggregate to plastic, which it breaks down into smaller particles, right? So that, you know, down the line, you will not see it sometimes. It will break down into smaller particles and just, you know, it might not be seen to the naked eye, but those pieces will be there in the environment as microplastics, right? So we don't touch that. It's called oxo-biodegradable technology, and it's probably something that we don't ever encourage because it creates more microplastic. Then even in compostables, there's something called home compostable standard, industrial compostable standard. That is basically, if you have an industrial compostable bag, it needs an industrial composting facility to decompose, like certain temperature, certain moisture levels, certain controlled composting environment, which Sri Lanka doesn't have. A lot of South Asian countries don't have, but if you take Europe, US, they all have those facilities. So again, we have stuck for our Sri Lankan products. I would say 95% of our products, even as a whole, we stuck to home compostable unless there are buyers who specifically say it's going to a home industrial composting facility. Then we can assure them we can give you an industrial compost. But for Sri Lanka, we've stuck with home composting, which means that it can go into a compost bin at your home, or sometimes even into a garbage dump. We don't encourage it. We don't say to dump it because Sri Lankans take it in the wrong way. But we always encourage to put it in a compost bin. So if it goes into a compost bin under natural circumstances, it can decompose. That's the product that we have introduced. I will tell you later. We've been pushing so much on the decomposing times that during the pandemic, actually, we had some issues. It was decomposing too fast at some of the outlets, and then we had to retrieve stock because in 3 months it was decomposing. So I think I'll talk about it a bit later down the line. But so because our measures were so tough, we put very tough measures to ourselves to say that, this bag cannot be in the environment, for more than 1 year. We were trying to reduce it to 6 months and try and push it back so that it decomposes faster, because every time it decomposes, it's adding some nutrients back to the compost itself. So that energy is circulated. And on the other hand, when it comes to our own measures, we don't just do manufacturing itself, and at the factory level, we do a lot of environmental work we can get involved with as part of our sustainable policy. It's the heart and soul of our company. We work with a lot of environmentalists. We are into tree plantings, protecting forests. We do that as a part of our passion. That's also part of our sustainability. And then when it comes to packaging, yes, there is a certain amount of electricity, carbon. You need to import certain raw materials. So we've looked at how to minimize those, because the machines itself gives you a 30% reduction in carbon footprint compared to conventional packaging. So we have a huge edge there because our heating emissions are lower, our raw material heatings are lower, likewise. So on the other hand, we try to offset whatever we have through our environmental programs. We don't highlight it too much because we want to do it as part of our own passion. We work with some of the corporates in doing that as well. And I think one program is we have a bags to trees program, like with Keels, we do their compostable bags for their vegetable counters, and we plant 2,000 trees every year with that initiative. And so with all of our customers, we actually propose them a model where some of the profits actually go back into a tree planting project or a nature securing project, which sometimes goes as part of our profits rather than adding a price to it. So I think goals wise, what we set is we want to make a change in the industry. It's a challenge because this packaging industry is not at all a sustainable industry. It's been a huge challenge to start it off, to take it on, challenge the pricing of the conventional models. But I think we've hit, especially with Keels, when we partnered up, we've hit some big commitment numbers, which also where Keels could also reduce quite a bit of their footprint because of our bags. And I think now we are on a path. We want to quickly capture the rest of the supermarket sectors and the big packaging sectors to push them to do the change. And I think that will hopefully bring about our goals that we have looked at.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's a lot of initiatives that you're taking into sustainability. And I think that's really important and encouraging for whoever is wondering how to run a business, but at the same time care about the planet. I think this is a great solutions. So moving on to the next question, I have to ask Mr. Himesh Fernando, how do you do business in a sustainable manner, and while incorporating sustainability, what are the challenges you faced trying to implement it?
I think that's a good question. It's a challenge for really all eco-entrepreneurs. I'm guessing Lonali and Chullaka also agree with me. So yeah, when I took up this role of going down the eco-entrepreneurship journey, I knew it's going to be tough, right? It's not like starting any other trading business or buying and selling, or let's say, so you develop something and sell. Here, you got to give what the customer wants, right? And customer is very picky. They have certain criteria. They have a price criteria, they have a quality criteria, they have a time criteria, right? And from a business perspective, you want to give what they want, but then you got to true to your heart and say you got to give them in a sustainable fashion. So competing against someone who is not going down the sustainability route, yes, there are processes that we have to stick to. There are sustainability supply chains we have to stick to. Then you got to make sure all you do, all you say, all your packaging, everything resembles what the brand is about. So doing all that, there are additional costs. There could be additional costs, processes, checks to put in place, whilst also making sure customer wants it and customer can pay for it, right? Now that is the biggest challenge in circular economy. I mean, that's a word, economy. You've got to make economic sense while doing circularity. So we've had that challenge, and we are facing it as we speak. Things don't come cheap when you want to do sustainable. So, for example, let's say I'll take an example from our business. So once a customer puts in a bottle or everything, so we send out a text. Why do we send out a text? Because you don't have to print out chits, and there are no paper chits. The process is simple. Again, we want to be very eco in our whole business, right? We don't want to even print a chit. That's again paper. So text message we feel is a more eco-friendly version of it. But text messages don't come cheap. It's more than a chit, right? It's more than printing a barcode chit, because a text message will cost 50 cents, 80 cents, or even more sometimes. Now, how do we build this bridge? Who's going to pay for this extra effort we are putting in? Is the customer willing to pay? So, all customers, in social media and stuff, you might have a lot of people, proponents, who are promoting this circularity concept. But when it comes to paying, only a certain percentage is actually prepared to pay for it, right? So how do we really scale this up in a manner that, you can offer something to all the customers at the same time the business makes economic sense? So that is the challenge, the biggest challenge we have. And I'm sure all businesses have it, but that is also where the innovation is needed, circularity. So you do something in a more innovative way that makes it cheaper. Now if making garments out of recycled bottle has come to a stage that is cheaper than using virgin plastic to make polyester fabric, then there's a better market. But it's not so. The cost of logistics, washing, and making that yarn and putting into clothing makes the recycled pellet even more expensive. Is the customer willing to pay for it? Or that's the transition we need to do, but that's our biggest challenge.
Wow.
Getting the best of both worlds, giving the customer what you want, and also making sure business is profitable.
Yeah, that's great. And
sorry, you asked me for the challenge, or you asked me for an answer to a solution for the challenge? You asked me what the challenges are, right?
No, the challenges.
Okay.
But I think also, like Ms. Lonali can relate to that with the circular mindset. I think if you could share some of your aspects of it, that would be great.
I think I just have to summarize what Himesh said. I mean, what the biggest challenge we have is changing the consumer mindset, because they are asking for something that is, the trend is something else. We are trying to break the norm and give something sustainable. At the same time, changing the supply chain, which is also the tough one, which is what Himesh has said. We have to change each step of the making process and make it sustainable, and that takes more cost. At this time, it is more costly because rest is doing it cheaper, right? So we are trying to make it think about the environment or think about the people, and we have to bear that cost. Therefore, the cost is high. So managing these two, supply chain and consumer, and changing both the consumer mindset and supplier mindset is the biggest challenge. At the same time, I think what is missing is making sustainable cool. So if we can make sustainable cool the trend, then the demand will increase, which means the supply also will be affected, because this is the, demand goes high, supply is more. So if we can figure out to make sustainability the cool thing, I think that might be, I know that you didn't ask the solution, but then that is also another challenge.
That's
Making sustainability cool is a challenge, but it's something that we should all think about doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I 100% like agree on that. To make it shouldn't be like a suffering that people actually think of it as. So I think that's really important to highlight on that. But since we are also running out of time, I would have to move on to the final question, which would apply to everyone. Because I think, especially when we're talking about eco-entrepreneurs, there is an eco-friendly image that each enterprise carries. And so that with that, it raises the question of how can you increase your brand's eco-friendly image, but at the same time, how trustworthy are the eco labels, and how can a consumer validate a company that claims something? So I think I would like to ask Mr. Chullaka, because I think he has quite a lot to talk about on this issue, because we have to also consider greenwashing in mind.
Yeah. Well, it's a big topic to touch on. I mean, there's so many aspects to it. When you say credibility, for us, it's twofold. We also have to build our credibility with what we produce, what we supply, but also we have to be mindful with the credibility of our end customers, because we are a B2B at the moment. We supply to other businesses, so we had to be careful with who we work with also. Whether they're actually not greenwashing, they're into really doing something which is a long-term proper solution, whether their heart is in the right place. It has come across to us multiple times, and where they just want shortcuts, they just want to show they're doing well. So it's been a challenge to sometimes we had to say no to certain customers because of that. So I think for us in our industry, because it's a huge, it has a huge black mark. The whole packaging industry has a lot of plastic. It's based on plastics and polythenes, right? So to even get a step on it, first of all, people don't believe you have a solution that's sustainable, right? So which is good, which we took it as a challenge, because that means we have to do the education right, we have to get the facts right. It's a challenge that we knew we would face, and it's a challenge that we are taking as a positive, because it has really challenged us to be better, to be more informed, and also sometimes the world is also changing, the information is changing. Like as I said earlier, 5 years ago they introduced something called oxo-biodegradables, which everybody thought for one whole year it was the best product, right, which could break down plastics. But then the talk about microplastics came about, and they realized it's the worst product. So we also need to do our research. We need to be top of the game with the technologies, with the science that's available, to keep completely changing our businesses. So I think that's also something that the customer will see, and also being open about what you have, what your product is, always telling the customer what it is. It's tough a bit for us because we are working B2B, but with for us sometimes we need to also push the enterprises. Like the Keel's example is they wanted a proper product. They wanted to reduce 50% plastic. And we just didn't go to them and say, here, sell 100% bags. We just said, the cost is high on this. You can reduce 30% of your usage by educating people, which they're already starting, right? So they reduce 30% of that cost through reduction of bags, through education, through rethinking the process. So they have a cost saving there, right? And then again, we said, okay, let's find a replacement step by step for the other products and try and reduce in the meantime, right? So that are also those things which we really look at. The proper environment side of it, I think, has really made companies also understand that it has built trust, because they know we are just not there to sell bags or just to make profits. There's something more to it. But as you said, greenwashing is always there. We are struggling with it. There are a lot of products that don't come with the proper facts, and they sell cheap. We were talking about pricing earlier. That's the biggest factor. So it's a challenge in itself. I'm sure the others can also relate to this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chullaka. With also like how a consumer can recognize the difference between greenwashing and its authenticity. Ms. Lonali Rodrigo, do you have anything to add to that?
I think transparency is a huge part, especially in the fashion industry. A lot of people, when you go and purchase a product, they don't look at really the most important things that they have to look at in a piece of clothing. What is it made out of, where it is made in, how you give a care. There's a care label especially to know how you wash it, not just because it's fun to put a care label there, right? But what we really look at is the price, the fashion, and the size, and the color of it, or all that secondary things. So I think it is important for a brand to be transparent, at the same time the consumer to be educated. So we play a 50-50 part in this role. So if a brand can be transparent about the materials that they use, who makes it, what is the process, that educates the consumer, and that creates that attachment as well. In a circular economy, attachment is one of the models as well. You create that brand that shows how you attach to a product, and that helps you to keep in the circulation as well. And the second thing is, I think, as a brand in Sri Lanka, being a fashion brand, which is a tough one, a lot of SMEs. So I know the bigger brands are doing a lot of greenwashing, which, it's just about marketing. It's just about posting a picture behind some greenery and saying we are green, while we are making a huge effort to make the whole process green. So there's a huge challenge that we face, but I think it's all about collaboration over competition. So most of the smaller brands have got together to face this challenge, as well as House of Lonali. What we've done is also like Chullaka said, looking at the B2B. So there are businesses who want to be sustainable. So we are trying to say how we can help them to be sustainable, rather than pointing out saying they're the worst people. How can we support? The industry itself, if they have waste, I can't tell them not to make clothes because it's a part of the economy, like I initially said. But how can we help them to upcycle their waste? That that can help them to bring their costs down. That can maybe bring them an extra income in some sort, or can save other costs. So we work with some of the corporate clients also, because those are bigger, very impactful than doing one-to-one customers. So if they have a whole lot of things that are going waste, if we are there to kind of upcycle it, bring it back to a new life, so that for them it saves than maybe throwing. Sometimes in Sri Lanka you have to pay people to take your waste out. right? That itself, they're saving that money. Then, you have no way to dump it. You have to store. You have to pay for storage in some cases. If not, you have to make new products. So we always say there is a cost-effective, upcycling is always a cost-effective way. Maybe what we can do is, let's work together, we collaborate and work together and find a solution rather than pointing at each other. Because if we try to, what we also believe is, if we try to just pass the ball of responsibility, no one's going to take it. So we always believe that collaboration will bring a better impact in sustainability.
Oh, thank you so much. And Mr. Himesh, do you have anything to add to what Mr. Chullaka and Miss Lonali mentioned?
Add my views on it. I mean, you had two parts to it. First is like, how do you increase your sustainability image? I mean, if there are like future entrepreneurs in here, I mean, I'd like to give them this tip. It's got to be everything about what you communicate from end to end. So for us, it's about, for example, I'll give an example of real life. A business card, it's got to be looking like cardboard. It's not a fancy one, no laminate, nothing. It's just a piece of paper, right? Similarly, if you're using a digital screen, you've got to make sure it's, energy efficient, right? Similarly, it's about how the employees behave, right? And it has changed me over time, to be honest. I mean, initially, I wasn't the guy who would, carry my straw around or carry my bags around to the store to buy stuff. But over time now, and also participating in these seminars, I had to change things again. I got to live up to this now. I'm doing an eco-entrepreneurship. My thing is about sustainability. So I've got to change. I have to kind of make sure everything communicates the same message. So I carry my old shopping bags now. In the car somewhere, I've got a bunch of bags, and I still forget at times. I somehow take it when I go grocery shopping. Similarly, even to remember when you place an order for a drink, to tell them not to put a straw, because first few 10, 20 times you forget, and they give you the straw anyway, and you think, they've given me the straw anyway, so I'll use it. But you can't, Then I started keeping the straw aside and drinking it. So actively, you have to make that change for it to get ingrained. And then that communicates to everyone you meet, and the same for all employees. So that's about, increasing your sustainability image. So other important question you asked is, how do you distinguish greenwashing, right? That's a very good question. It's a tough one, right? For me, I'd say the analogy is, it's about meeting two people. You go somewhere, you go to a party, you go to some meeting, get together, you meet a person. At face value, it's very difficult to say, right? They're all talking nicely, they're all talking facts, whether they're actually small talk or not, it's hard to say. But you associate them over time, and you see the two personalities coming apart. Who's genuine about what they say? Do they actually walk the talk? And who's actually doing it just to portray an image? But you can fast track this. You can do your research. You can do, are they actually abiding to the Sustainable Development Goals, the GRI standards, through the annual reports and stuff. What are they actually doing, and what are they actually doing to portray that image? You'll get it's actually trying to decode a person. So associate them for a while, and you'll figure it out. That's a simpler version of my answer.
That's great. I think that's a really great answer to already have an idea what they're trying to portray and what they're promoting, and to as well as have a basic knowledge in us what they're trying to do, and to do our own research and to learn more about it. I think that's a really good tip. I think now we will move on to the audience questions that we have received. I think this question is for Mr. Lonali. What is your process of upcycling?
So what we basically do is we source apparel industry waste, both indirectly and directly, because sometimes you can get it from the factories itself. But there's also what we realized throughout the process doing it for 8 years is there's also people who are living out of collecting waste, segregating waste, bundling and reselling waste. So we would take from the informal sector and the directly from the factories, both. this waste, and then we bring it into our studio, which is where I'm right now. And inside we try to segregate. We have a lot of segregation and inspection to do within ourselves, like the designers. So what we have to do is we have to check why it was waste, whether we get different sizes, pieces, colors, fabrication. We don't know why sometimes it's waste even. So what we do is we kind of take it aside, put it into bundles, or we make the process a little bit easy for us to design. And then we sit and design. So we can't design and go look for fabric. Once we find the fabric, we start designing. Then we work with the cottage industry artisans, because upcycling needs a lot of time and love, that it's individually hand cut, manually cut, and manufactured. So we work with these cottage industry ladies who are at home, or who have worked in the industry or right now at home. So it was a good model for us as well during the COVID. It worked perfectly because these are all home-based artisans. And then they work, we work on a sample first, and then we do the quality checks, all that, and then finally they send us back the clothing. So that's basically simply our process of making an upcycled product.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I think there is another question, and this may be for Mr. Himesh. Do you think making t-shirts out of plastic can be a risky move, since if more demand is created, more bottles would be needed, since used bottles are a determinant of how much waste is generated? But what happens to the t-shirts afterwards? And also, would this create higher demand for plastic-based apparels, giving an excuse to manufacturers to use more single-use plastic instead of moving into alternatives?
Well, that's a long question.
Yeah.
It's a long question, but I think I got the gist of it. But it's a very good question. Hey, so see. The question, okay, so this, Dani, so what's happening is, first you need to understand, lost my train of thought there, the concept of circular economy, right? I'll keep this short, but the hierarchy of addressing single-use plastics or waste for that matter is reduce, reuse, recycle. That's the hierarchy, that's a pyramid, right? And you got to stick to it by any shape or form. Now, let's keep that aside for a moment. Then you got the plastics industry, then you have the t-shirt manufacturing. Now that goes on, right? Whether polyester garment manufacturers, you take any garment, apparel, fabric manufacturer, they are importing pellets, and pellets come from, it's a subshoot of the oil industry, right? So they get the pellet down and they make products and they sell. Now the comparison is this is not the ideal world. To the person who asked this question, it's not the ideal world that we're making t-shirts out of bottles because what happens to the t-shirt then, right? I'll answer that. However, the fact that if you have two scenarios where someone is using virgin plastic to make your t-shirt, or someone is using recycled pellets now you're all familiar now with what happened in the Express Pearl. So if you're using recycled pellet versus virgin pellet, recycled pellet usage is good because that means the recycled pellet is coming from another product and it's giving it another lease of life through another life cycle of a product, which is the garments product. So another 2-3 years, it won't enter the landfills, right? So you're basically, the easiest example I take is like kicking a football, right? You kick it up. Right now, the take, make, waste economy is like you kick a football up and it falls. It comes to the environment directly. But if you can increase the life cycle, if you can keep kicking the football up so many times, that means it doesn't enter the landfills and the ocean so quickly. It will at the end of the day, but it won't be so quickly, right? So you're extending the life cycle. That's the concept of circular economy. So thing is, it's not the perfect solution, making t-shirts out of bottles, but it's better than making t-shirts out of virgin plastic, right? So that's a comparison in one. Then also you asked me, what is the other thing? The thing you asked me was, does it encourage people to keep using plastic bottles, saying, okay, it goes into garments anyway, so it's okay to keep producing single-use plastic? The answer is no. As I said, that's why I brought the hierarchy. First is reduce. Every manufacturer, everyone who's using single-use plastic, first objective should be, how do I reduce it? Only if you can't reduce it, you got to go to reuse. If you can't reuse, only you have to go to recycle, right? Only if you can't do the top tier, only you go to the second tier. So that's in a nutshell what you can do. So manufacturers, if you're thinking I can keep making my single-use plastic, bottles and cans and everything over and over for the rest of my life, I think you got it wrong. You got to transition to something that's not single-use plastic. But until then, you got to make sure the single-use plastic you put out to the environment gets recycled, right? Until then. So that's, I think, just my opinion, and I think it's in line with the concept of circular economy.
Thank you. I was actually going to ask Ms. Lonali for her opinion on this as well. I think we lost her for a second. Until then, okay, she is going to join now. Hi, welcome back. So I wanted to ask you, Ms. Lonali, what is your opinion on the question that was asked? Since you are also in the apparel industry, like, what is your opinion on this?
On the t-shirt, right? So I also think, I mean, the way I would explain is, okay, if it's not for polyester, you go for cotton. But cotton is one of the crops that consume a lot of water. 1 kilogram of cotton takes about more than 20,000 liters of water. So obviously, when you do a comparison, I think what is important is to know the impact of everything, right? Be an educated, be aware about all these things when you purchase. That's why it's important to first select as a consumer. Then I think the next is, of course, by recycling, you're not obviously making going into virgin materials. Like Himesh said, it's all you're keeping it in a circulation. So you're not to grow something new or to make something new, you need to take more energy and do the cycle. So rather than going into taking something new, which we are also running out of most of the resources, water, air. So rather than trying to use that, we can actually recycle what's already in the earth. So that is the second best option. But the best option is what you already have in your hand. Rather than trying to purchase a polyester t-shirt or the cotton t-shirt, the t-shirt you already have, if you can keep it for more than another maybe 10, 20 years, it might last for a good 100 years if it's polyester. So if you can at least keep it with you for 50 years. I have a t-shirt which is about 40 years old, which is worn by my aunts. So if you can keep it, and even if you can give it to your children and keep it as a duster to a bag to convert it into something and use it, I think that's the most sustainable thing. So I think it's rather than you're also trying to see this is what we have. We're talking sometimes it's too much to take for a person to see what's the most sustainable thing we're going to do. But build your awareness. And when you're making that choice as a consumer, I think that's best to kind of see, okay, what impact, if I purchase this or this, what is each one's impact? And if you don't have to purchase, that would be the best thing, and that would create a demand. Not create lower the demand for the things that we are making. So that might actually create a better environment anyway. So I think my take on it is slightly like a more sort of a consumer end. Is that?
Okay, thank you so much for answering that in such an interesting and innovative way of finding the solution for it. I would like to ask the last question from Mr. Chullaka does the increase of consumer awareness impact in organizations' values, and does it motivate companies to implement more green practices?
Oh yes, that's definitely an yes from my end. It's something we've seen, uh, experienced in the last so many years. I would say it's a community of awareness-based people, or who are people who are really caring about the environment. Those are the ones who are really making the change, even for us to thrive in this environment, even for us to really get this going. I think it's who they are, because they always challenge companies to make the change, because in the end the consumer is very powerful. And now with all the social media and all the things that have brought the consumer a lot more closer to the companies, they also have to listen to the consumer when they say something. So I have a lot of examples that have come about that, and have how companies have changed, and they have reached out to us saying, we have a huge issue like that. We are doing online deliveries. We posted a picture, and the customers are going, mad about us. We are delivering a great product, but since everything was wrapped in polythene, they are just blasting us on internet. Can you guys really help us? Give an alternative. So I mean, that's just one. I have had so many like that, and we are also seeing a lot of education going into this space with a lot of environmental organizations and many other development platforms. Then like there are a lot of people who do their own part, because now people have really realized to a certain extent, a certain segment of the market have realized that conscious environmentalism and conscious purchasing is really something important. So I would definitely say yes, it really does motivate companies to implement green practices. And I think our role is to also educate the consumer more, so that it becomes easier for them. They have the right information. I think it's a part and parcel thing, and I think it's for the good.
That's great. Ms. Lonali, did you have anything to add to that?
I actually was saying I was also one of the people who approached Chullaka to kind of find a solution for our packaging. That's why I was one of those people. So I think, like you said, it's definitely a yes. We have a responsibility of educating them as well. And I've been doing the business for last 8 years. If people haven't purchased, obviously I wouldn't have done this business all for 8 years, right? So a lot of people have asked me, is this a good business? I always say I wouldn't have done it for 8 years if it was not. So I think consumers play a huge role in, especially we are small brands, we don't have marketing budgets as such. So what we do is always talk about what we do, how we do it, and build awareness and educate the consumer. So consumers also, there's a huge part to support us and talk about it, share their experience, talk about our products. That has helped us throughout the last 8 years as well. So definitely a yes.
Great. And Mr. Himesh, do you also have anything to add to any final comments?
Yeah, to add, yes, maybe, yes, awareness is, I think, it's a hygiene factor. Without it, we won't survive, to be honest, because that's what creates the demand. So I've got to add, the social media has kind of really helped, propagate the message on this eco platform. However, man, I'd like to add to this because there's an audience. I'd like to kind of add a little message on top of that. Participating in this awareness propagation is fantastic, but I would also request the consumer to take the plunge in kind of the trial and the purchase as well, because the propagation of the message, the typical marketing, awareness, interest, and action. Awareness part, I think now is getting created, but we need a little more action now. I think that's what we need to push for. So if you have a chance to try anything, maybe you'll spend 5 to 10% more on something sometimes, or it could be even more. But if you have the disposable income to try it for the cause, I think that's the action I would request of the audience today, to give it a go. See, you might notice a change, you might not. It might give you a better feel-good factor about the fact that you're contributing to a eco cause, and I mean it might help all our cause and our society in general and Sri Lanka in general in the long run.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we would have to now conclude the session. So I would like to thank our exclusive patron, the EU delegation in Sri Lanka, summit patron Dilma Conservation and Keels, and supporting patron Plastic Cycle. Please do stay tuned for the rest of the summit, as we intend to talk a lot more about our oceans. And I really hope that everyone got to enjoy and learn more about eco-entrepreneurship initiatives, as well as other important topics that we discussed today. And I hope that it inspired you as much as it did to me. And however, unfortunately, we will be concluding the theme of ocean pollution and solutions today. And I would like to thank you all for participating in this session. Our next session tomorrow will be under the theme of Towards an Ocean-Based Resource Economy, with the topic on Introduction to Blue Economy, and will commence at 2 p.m. So thank you once again, Mr. Chullaka Hapuarachchi, Mr. Himesh Fernando, and Ms. Lonali Rodrigo for joining in for today's session. I wish all of you and the expert panelists a very lovely evening ahead.
Thanks.